Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the top 10 loadouts for Season 3. This is probably the #1 requested thing within Warzone after this update. And I know a lot of people are also asking about the long-range meta after the update, and I think this is going to include a lot of that. And after the Amax receives a slight nerf, maybe 1 bullet extra to the chest, so instead of 8, it'll be like 9 or something like that. I think it'll open the floodgates on what is viable and what is top tier and meta at range, and hopefully that comes sooner rather than later, so we have a lot of options, because our close range options, it's very unlimited, and we'll talk a little bit about that more today. So hopefully you guys do enjoy the video, learn something new. If you do, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Goal in today's video is 15,000 likes, so hopefully you guys can destroy that number. And if you're brand new looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, we're getting very close to 1 million subscribers, and hopefully you guys can help me get to that number. If you enjoy the content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. One thing I will point out that I do on these videos is, if you look on the bottom, if you look in the description, there's going to be timestamps for all the various things we're going to talk about, and why, with full descriptions of why I choose what I choose and how I made my particular choices. So skip ahead if you want to skip ahead, more power to you. You get that option if you're interested in only one particular thing. So I've already gone and renamed all of the loadouts so they match up, and I'll explain why I'm using certain loadouts over others. One loadout that I have here, I'm going to breeze through pretty quickly because this is my experimental loadout. I'm seeing how viable the M16 is after this update, because it did receive some nerfs. Obviously, all got nerfed into the ground. Want to give it a little bit more playtime to decide whether or not I like the M16. And then, of course, the MP5. I like both the MP5s, but obviously, once you get beyond about 12 meters, they tend to struggle a little bit, especially this one with a little bit more velocity in its vertical recoil. Class setup currently is the Agency Silencer, the Task Force Barrel, Field Agent Grip, 45 round mag, and then 3x optic. As far as this one goes, we have the Agency Suppressor. This is a Cold War MP5, by the way. Task Force for the extra range, since it is kind of limited, a little bit more bullet velocity. And then we get the Field Agent Grip, which is the only grip that's going to help with vertical recoil, 50 round regular drum mag, not the fast mag, and then the Raider stock for the extra strafe speed. Feel like the gun's a little bit too slow. You're not going to get all that mobility, but you could put on a Serpent Wrap that'll help out with that actual ADS speed, so you got the benefit there. As far as perks go, EOD is generally the top tier first perk. Number 2, you probably could switch it to something else. Maybe you want double time to move a little bit faster. It does help in certain scenarios. Just don't run cold-blooded. Quick fix is good, maybe for like Rebirth, because you down someone, you can get that health back to rechow the next guy, even though you're not going to have plates. But generally, it's either double time or EOD. Next one's going to be Restock, Overkill, High Alert, or Ghost. High Alert is more niche. You use it when you feel like you don't want to get shot in the back. But generally, Ghost is going to be the main go-to. If you know how to use Restock, then you're going to use Restock effectively. In terms of this, if you're using a pistol, you're probably not going to need amped. If you're using a launcher or anything else along that line, you want amped. It's just way faster. Tune-up doesn't give enough big enough bonus. Shrapnel is kind of a waste. You can find loot that way. Battle Hardened doesn't help enough. Spotter's okay for like hacking stuff. And then we have Tracker, which is good for seeing people in the dark if you don't have the right filters on. So it's kind of how that part goes. As far as Semtex, these are all going to be optional depending on what scenario. But that is an experimental loadout. A lot of times this is the one I swap out when I go to Plunder, try things out and test stuff out. And then I don't have to worry about messing up my other loadout. So this could really be whatever you want. Then I have a Restock class with a sniper rifle. I have a Kar98. So if I need to pick up a Kar98 because the zone's going to be in the hilly area and I want to have a little bit more range, I can choose that. And this is built in with a Psychov pistol, 80 round mag. It's still viable after the update. And we'll kind of talk about those loadouts. So we got monolithic, Singard, 27.6 inch tac laser, sniper scope, and the precision comb, just because it gets rid of a lot of the idle sway, just makes it a little bit easier. You want a little bit faster aim down sight, you can just go with the sport comb. Pretty straightforward there. As far as this one, you're going to build it out like a single SMG, monolithic, the auto barrel, the tac laser, faster aim down sight, because they did nerf that. 80 round drum mag, and then this Prizak VOK, which is essentially like a stippled grip. So you just go that route, you're good to go. And then that one, I have a Restock with the option of claymores and stuns, because normally if I already have a nade in my first loadout, then I get the option, do I want Restock with a nade, because depending on the zone, or claymores. I usually have them alternated so that I get the option that I'm not grabbing the same thing repeatedly, especially if I'm beginning Restock. Same thing here with a Ghost, but instead of the Kar98, I'm using the HDR. In this particular case, the HDR is monolithic suppressor, 26-inch barrel, or HDR Pro, tech laser, variable zoom scope, which is pretty much the main way to use the HDR, because there's a lot of other options. SPR, a little bit faster, less zoom, but this gives you the maximum optical zoom with that variable zoom. And then the F-Tech Stalker Scout, which gives you a little bit faster aim down sight speed. Straightforward, pretty straightforward setup. And that's kind of how I built those out. Zone 5 or your second loadout, maybe you want to get these, but you don't really want to worry about ammo. I usually have a fully loaded Grau, and the Grau is the #1 weapon for this particular slot, in my opinion, because you can get it fully loaded and it's still very good. It's definitely within the top tier options, not quite meta because there are a couple faster killing guns, but it's definitely easy to use with this particular build. And the way I usually go about this one is I use everything, but instead of attack laser, I switch it over to fully loaded. So it's monolithic, Archangel, Commando, 60 round mag, and fully loaded, so that I don't really have to worry about my ammo situation. And then the Psykov still works as a secondary. In case I end up getting a little bit close quarters, it'll still get the job done. If this is kind of like your regain loadout, where maybe you're coming back from the gulag, you don't have a chance, zone 5, you're not really going to get a chance to regain. Maybe you need to win one gunfight and it's still the other person's guns. This is the loadout you can use with either Restock or Ghost. So you got those options there. Pretty much identical loadouts from everything we talked about. So that take care of the loadout 6 through 10, and I've explained kind of how all of those work. Pretty straightforward. Now, this is where the meta gets really dicey, interesting, and people are going to have different preferences on. Some is going to go up and down. And the great part right now with the current meta is there's a lot of good options, and there's a lot of bad options, but there's definitely a lot more good options instead of FFAR, FFAR, AUG, M16, FFAR, FFAR, Amax, FFAR. It's way better than that right now, all right? So just trust me on it. Hopefully, if we get that Amax 1 bullet extra nerf, we're going to see it like, everyone can use anything. It's going to be like full reign on what you're going to use, and it's going to be a lot of fun in Warzone. Not that this isn't more fun, because definitely a distinct difference compared to the meta that we've had for the past 3 or 4 months. So first one up here at number 5 is the Amax. These are essentially like twin guns here, and what you're doing is the Amax is going to be your long range rifle, mid-range rifle, and then the AK47 is going to fill in the gap in between that. Everything, all the perks, everything's the same. So for this one, you build it more like an SMG. You get a little bit more mobility. There are a couple different changes you can make to this depending on your skill level. You get the Spetsnaz grip. This is more like a task force. And then we have the Spetsnaz grip, which is horizontal and vertical, 45 round mag, serpent wrap. And then we also have the skeleton stock. There is one thing going around, but it takes way more skill. So you know your skill, try it. If you're missing shots, then you got to use this one, right? But you can actually remove the Spetsnaz grip and then put on the Tiger Team Spotlight, because it gives you movement and strafe speed, which allow you to be even more cracked out, make it harder to hit. So that the slower rate of fire, maybe you get less penalized because it's harder for your enemy to hit you. Trade-offs, right? To each their own. You know your skill level. If you can pull it off, more power to you. But that's generally how you want to build it. Kind of like an AK-7 with the Spetsnaz RPK barrel. So pretty straightforward loadout there. Amax pretty much hasn't changed. Usually the only thing you change here is the optic, depending on how you want to use it. Monolithic, Zodiac, Commando foregrip. Then we have the 45 round mag, as well as a 3X optic, which is the VOK. Some people like the Canon Hybrid just because you get a little bit more zoom. Some people like the Cronin because you get a little bit more zoom than just the regular 3X. You're getting like 3.25, 3.5. You get a little bit more, or you just go with the holographic. You're not going to get nearly as much zoom, but it does give you a nice clean sight picture if you have the blue dot. Cool class setup there. Then we go into the Krig LC10. Keeping in mind that a lot of these first weapons could be swapped with the other first weapons, and a lot of the second weapons can be swapped with the other second weapons. And I try to include these in a way that you're going to be able to see multiple combinations, but also multiple loadouts instead of all Amax and then just change the secondary. That's kind of a little bit boring. I want to give you a little bit more variety in the mix. But here we go. Krig LC10. The main thing you got to worry about with the Krig is you're really never going to use it up close. You're going to use it probably at 50 meters plus, 40 meters plus, maybe 35 meters. So you want the maximum bullet velocity. You don't really care much about range. You got to go agency suppressor, Ranger, which gives you max bullet velocity. So you're getting really competitive bullet velocity. Field agent grip to help with the minimal recoil. And then you got the 60 round standard mag. So you're not hurting ADS too bad. And then you got the 3X. 2X, less visual recoil, but less optical zoom. So generally you're going to go with the 3X. Good weapon, got a huge buff, kills faster than the M4 now, which is kind of disgusting because M4 is one of my favorite guns. If the M4, like if this didn't get buffed, I would have been using the M4, but since it did, it's kind of one of those things now. It's actually pretty good. But it's a little tricky to get used to just because it's been bad for a little bit. Then we have the LC10, which actually got a nice little buff to its bullet velocity, which allows you to take care of its actual range. It actually has pretty solid range, one of the best ranges in the SMG category. And that's kind of what makes it good. It's not great at point blank range, but once you get past about 10 meters, it ends up being very good all the way up to about 20 meters. So we got agency suppressor, task force, field agent grip, 55 round mag. And then right now I have the combat stock just because I don't have it to level 54. I'm 3 levels short, but I would put on the last stock. And the last one, you typically get a little bit better strafe speed and a little bit better sprint to fire. This one of the benefits is it doesn't hurt your hip fire quite as much, but generally with these guns, you're not going to want to hip fire because they really excel when you're getting those upper chests and then you get the headshot, which hip fire, you get a little bit of RNG in the mix. It's not as good. So that's kind of how that builds. Pretty good, new to the build. I'm not a huge fan of the LC10, but I know a lot of people like it, and it kind of goes head to head with the Bullfrog. Personally, I prefer the Bullfrog over it, but to each their own. That's the great part about this meta. You can have a lot of fun with weapons that you enjoy using. So enjoy using more weapons. That's what I really recommend in this meta. RAM, Kar98. The RAM, I didn't talk much about it in my other video about the best close range option, but it is definitely one of the close range options that is best. The problem is it doesn't have all the mobility of the Cold War stuff because they're kind of cracked out. But in my opinion, it is the best sniper support weapon because of its consistent TTK. It's a 5.56 weapon, so it doesn't matter if you hit them in the toe, the shoulder, anywhere. As long as you're not getting headshots, it's going to be a reliable TTK, and then headshots, I think it's 2 into the mix will lower the TTK. So pretty good. Recoil is a little bit tricky for some people because it goes up and to the left. But the build I have for that one is the monolithic. We got the forge tack eclipse since we're going to be challenging people at a little bit further ranges, but not like super far away. So you don't need the ranger for the range, bullet velocity, or recoil control. But if you do struggle with that, then you'd probably switch that to the ranger. Tack laser, commando foregrip, 50 round mag. And then if you struggle and you want to put in an optic, that kind of hurts the build quite a bit. You'd probably get rid of the tack laser and put on an optic, whether it's the Cronin 2x2 or the VLK, but then, or even a hollow sight or a reflex sight, something, because maybe you don't like it, but it comes down to preference, right? Great build. Kar98, same exact build that we just covered. Pretty straightforward. You either go with the sport comb or the precision. Again, those are preferences. Then that's going to bring us to the top end of this. And this is the AK47 actually as a long range option. They did modify it enough. It does require more skill, so I'm not sure how many people will enjoy this, but the recoil change makes this significantly easier if you treat it the same way you do with the Krig. So you got the Groove Suppressor, the Liberator, which is only bullet velocity, Spetsnaz grip per recoil, horizontal and vertical, 45 round mag. You could go 60 since ADS speed isn't as big a deal at range, especially since you're going to be combining this with maybe like the Bullfrog, LC10, or even the FFAR or the FARA. You got some good options for close range where you could swap that out. FARA could also be used at long range as well. I just kind of ran out of slots. But a lot of the builds are very similar. If you're using a Cold War weapon for range, you generally want to focus on bullet velocity, since the difference between like 30 meters and like 35 meters isn't generally the deciding factor in a gunfight at 55 meters. It just doesn't matter. So you can go with either or. It essentially has a very similar damage profile to Amax. Fire rate's a little bit slower, but sometimes that's a good thing, where you're able to recenter your shots. And a bad thing is if you miss, you're penalized pretty hard. So there you go with the 3X. Pretty different there. And then we have the Bullfrog. We got Groove Suppressor, Task Force, 65 round mag, Serpent Wrap, and then the Skeleton Stock. You could get rid of this 65 round mag, and then you could focus on the Spetsnaz grip, and this will just give you a little bit more accuracy, because this was all about accuracy. Or you get rid of the Spetsnaz grip, and maybe you don't like the iron sights, you put on a Microflex LED, and that gives you basically iron sight zoom, without getting any visual optical zoom, and it's just clear because you get a nice little red dot in the middle. So again, preference. I'm liking it. I actually prefer an optic, but I feel like I like having the 65 round mag in quads and trios. It's just, so you kind of got to pick and choose what makes the most sense for you. That is one of the downsides on the Bullfrog, despite it having a really good TTK. Then the last but not least is the Amax FARA. Like I said, the Amax, pretty much the same build that we're used to. We got Mono, Zodiac, VOK, Commando, 45 round mag. You could swap out the optic if you want. And then for the FARA, it's built like an SMG. Obviously, the rifle build is going to match exactly what we're talking about with the AK47 or the Krig. That's kind of how you build out all the Cold War guns because of the way their damage drop-offs work and how much range you actually get from these barrels. It's kind of negligible compared to a lot of the Modern Warfare stuff. So Groove Suppressor, you get the Ultralight. You could go with the Spetsnaz RPK. Some people will struggle with that. So again, it comes down to skill. I personally would probably go with the RPK barrel, like we've seen with the AK-47. It gives you the strafe speed, bullet velocity, effective damage range, so a lot of pluses. The recoil can be a little bit harder, but you're using it as an SMG. And despite the ammo, it actually gives you more ammo than it says, which is kind of dumb here. I don't know exactly why it works that way, but they'll eventually fix it. I think because they changed the coding from Cold War, they just copy and pasted, but they didn't actually modify the values to match correctly, or they changed the values, but they didn't update the descriptions. One of the two, right? It's an error. Serpent Wrap for a little bit faster ADS speed, and then we got the skeleton stock. You could actually get rid of the skeleton stock and go that Tiger team because you'll get the movement speed and walking speed, but if you need more recoil control, then you got to get rid of that and then put it over here on the Spetsnaz grip. So you got some different options there, and it kind of lays it out there. But one thing I do want to tack onto this is I actually have loadouts for every single weapon. So if maybe you want to mix and match, maybe try some stuff out for yourself, see kind of ranking. We actually did this all live on stream over on Twitch, which is just JGOD_gaming. If you want to check it out, link near the top of the description. But let's go ahead and check out that list, and I'll show you exactly how to read it. So this is the list we looked at here on Twitch. Pretty much I had all the ratings of the weapons and kind of what they mean description wise. And then we actually voted in the chat. The only thing missing on here is a brand new 2 weapons, which I'm going to have to update. The 2 weapons that we need to update are the PPSH, which we did do a loadout for, and the Swiss brand new weapons. They're not particularly special, so it doesn't really matter right now, but I will get those updated as soon as I can. And then we have the ratings on the left. You can kind of see the overall ratings of the weapon, and they're ranked from best to worst, not necessarily head-to-head rifles versus SMGs, kind of within their own category. The only time that kind of had overlap is with the sniper rifles and marksman rifles, since there is some overlap. Kar98, the Swiss, the HDR, the SPR, they kind of overlap there. But we go through, kind of give a general loadout, kind of get you a starting point. It doesn't mean just copy this loadout verbatim. You might want to change it up based off your own individual skill level. Very important. A lot of people were in the stream were like, hey, did you see Biffle's loadout? Yeah, Biffle's a god at the game. Did you see so-and-so's loadout? Yeah, they're a god at the game. Mutex is a god at the game. You think you have the recoil control? More power to you to match up to those players. Cool. If you don't, you probably got to modify the loadout to fit your skill level and needs. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. This will be linked in the description as well. Or you could just go to my stream and click on the stream, and in the chat, just do !loadout and it'll pop up. Living document. As I update it, it literally updates on the document. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.